You are being scammed! Somebody took the same movement, put a different name on it, and charged you $4,000 more. The watch industry has been running 5 distinct versions of this scheme for decades. But most buyers never notice because the boutiques are beautiful and the ads are persuasive. Today, we unravel the mechanism. We'll talk about 5 brands, the brand tax they are making you pay, and a pattern nobody in a boutique is going to explain. Number 5, Longines, the conglomerate shelf tax. Picture 2 counters in a Swatch Group boutique. Tissot on the left, Longines on the right. 1 sales associate per counter. Same training program, same corporate parent, same headquarters in Bielbienne, Switzerland, where the pricing decisions get made. The price gap between the 2 brands runs roughly $1,500 to $2,000, depending on which collection you're comparing. Walk away from that boutique carrying either watch, and you're holding a product manufactured under the same corporate umbrella, drawing from the same movement suppliers, assembled in the same Swiss cantons. The question nobody asks at the counter: what exactly justifies the difference? The Longines Conquest Classic Automatic retails around $2,100. It runs the Longines Caliber L619, which is a modified ETA 2892A2. The Tissot T-Classic PR 516 Powermatic 80 runs a different ETA variant. This one with an 80-hour power reserve, which is longer than what Longines offers in several comparable references. Both movements come from ETA's manufacturing network, wholly owned by Swatch Group, the same company purchasing movements from itself at internally negotiated prices, then presenting the result as 2 distinct tiers of Swiss watchmaking. The case finishing on the Longines is a step up. The dial quality is nicer. The branding carries a heritage story that Tissot doesn't attempt to invoke. But the gap between what you're buying and what you think you're buying is worth sitting with for a moment. Prior to the 1980s, Longines was not a tier in a conglomerate's pricing structure. It was a manufacturer in the full, traditional sense of the word. In 1942 and 1943, Longines held documented world precision records, certified by the Neuchâtel Observatory, for the accuracy of their observatory chronometers. Their calibers from the post-war period were among the most technically accomplished production movements of the era. The caliber 30Z, produced through the 1950s, was used by navigation schools and meteorological stations across Europe because it was actually accurate enough to rely on for serious work. When a Longines sales associate talks about legendary Swiss precision, they're borrowing from decades of achievements that are verifiably real. They're just not achievements the current entry-level watch delivers in proportion to the premium being charged. The Swatch Group consolidated its brand portfolio in the 1980s and 90s with the explicit goal of segmenting the market by price tier. Longines was assigned aspirational positioning. Omega above it, Tissot below, Certina and Mido at the entry level. This is a legitimate business strategy and a sensible one from a conglomerate perspective. But the outcome is that the Longines premium above Tissot is primarily a shelf assignment, not an engineering outcome. You're paying for a brand's designated position in a corporate portfolio architecture rather than a measurable difference in what the movement does when you're trying to catch a train. A Watch Crunch thread from 2024 comparing the Conquest Classic against the Tissot PRX ran for over 40 pages. The consensus from people who'd handled both, the Longines is prettier, the Tissot is frequently the smarter purchase, and the extra $1,500 delivers a nicer bracelet, better polishing, and a different name on the dial. The secondary market confirms the community's reading. Pre-owned Longines Conquest references trade at consistent discounts to retail because the premium above Tissot isn't independently valued by the market the way a premium from Omega or Rolex is. Let me tell you what the money actually buys. You walk into the boutique, and the Longines counter has velvet trays, leather accessories, slightly better lighting. The salesperson is a degree more attentive. You walk out with a nicer box, a more substantial warranty card, and the sense of having made a considered purchase. The Tissot counter is friendlier, and the box is plainer. The movement inside both watches is manufactured by the same company that owns both counters. The Longines tax is soft, the watch is good, and will last decades with proper care. You're not getting something dishonest. But between the $2,000 Longines and the $800 Tissot running a movement from the same corporate manufacturing network, the extra money went primarily to brand positioning infrastructure, heritage marketing, velvet trays, and the feeling of having stepped one shelf to the right. Not the watch. The honest version of the Longines pitch would go, "This is a better finished Tissot at a higher price point, positioned aspirationally within our conglomerate." The history we invoke is real but doesn't translate directly to what's inside this specific movement at this price. Nobody gives that pitch. But it's the accurate one. Which Longines do you own? The conglomerate shelf tax is the quietest one on this list. What comes next charges more and runs the same argument more expensively. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. That's why I created a complete insider guide to buying watches. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 4, IWC Schaffhausen, the Heritage Implied Tax. The IWC Mark XX is an attractive pilot's watch, and that needs to be the starting point before the numbers become the whole story. 40mm case, 49mm lug-to-lug, clean dial with anti-reflective convex sapphire crystal, slim bezel, and the kind of legibility that earned pilot watches their place in aviation instrument culture. The finishing is honest. The proportions are well judged. The red bar on the crown guard is understated. It reads right from the moment you put it on your wrist. It retails for $4,300. Now open the case back. IWC's standard Mark XX has a sapphire display back, so you'll see the movement without tools. What you find is the IWC caliber 35111. In 2020, a Watch You Seek forum member wrote to IWC directly after research suggested the movement had changed from the previous ETA 2892 A2 base. IWC confirmed in writing. The caliber 35111 is a Sellita SW3001, modified with IWC's finishing and engraving work. The letter was posted to the forum with the original correspondence attached. IWC didn't contest it. The Sellita SW3001 is a capable movement, accurate within standard tolerances, 42-hour power reserve, well proven across years of high-volume production. You can find it inside an Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot at around $1,800, inside certain Hamilton khaki aviation references at under $1,000, inside a Tissot Le Local at under $1,000. At $4,300, IWC's version has Côtes de Genève decoration, the IWC branded bridge, and additional finishing work. There's a scratch-resistant sapphire caseback. The strap is quality calfskin. The clasp is solid. The presentation is noticeably nicer than anything running the same movement for a fraction of the price. The movement does not tell time differently. The comparison that stings most at this price point isn't Tissot. It's the watches that exist in the same buyer's range and make different engineering choices. A Stoa Flieger Original, built to German DIN 8330 specifications that trace directly to Luftwaffe pilot watch requirements from the Second World War, runs the ETA 2,824 to 2 in a case with provenance IWC can't claim. It retails under $1,400. The SIN 556A, a Frankfurt-made pilot watch with a cult following among people who buy tools rather than symbols, runs a modified ETA 2,824 with additional manufacturing treatments. Under $1,500. None of these brands charge $4,300 for the implied story of technical precision. The IWC catalog complicates this in a way that matters. IWC does make in-house movements that earn meaningful premiums. The Portugieser Automatics Caliber 52000 is a 7-day movement with 2 mainspring barrels, a Peloton winding system using ceramic components specifically engineered by IWC to outlast steel equivalents, and a 168-hour power reserve that remains unusual at almost any price tier. At $7,450, the Portugieser makes a genuine engineering argument for a meaningful share of its cost. But IWC's pricing structure operates as if the caliber 52000's technical reputation extends to everything with IWC on the dial. The boutique environment makes no distinction between the two. The brand film playing in the showroom makes no distinction. The sales presentation doesn't begin. The Mark XX uses a Salida-based caliber, while the Portugueser uses our in-house movement. So you should factor that into your thinking. That conversation doesn't happen at $4,300 retail. The implied quality floor sits higher than the actual quality floor, and the buyer is expected not to notice. The broader thing happening here goes beyond IWC specifically. The heritage implied tax is a structural feature of how Swiss watchmaking operates as an industry. Brands that invested in genuine technical achievement decades ago trade on that achievement perpetually, including in the parts of their catalogs where the achievement isn't present in the specific watch being sold. A buyer who can spend $4,000 feels like they're making a serious purchase from a serious manufacturer. And they are, in the sense that the object is well made and will work reliably for decades. But they're not paying for the movement. They're paying for the brand's story about a kind of movement the watch they're actually carrying doesn't contain. There's a specific version of this buyer who matters here. He's in his 30s, done well, carries himself as someone who does his research before spending money. He reads 2 watch articles before walking into the boutique. Both mention IWC's reputation for precision. He tries on the Mark XX, feels the case quality, reads the clean dial. He pays $4,300 feeling like he bought into something technical and serious. He did, but the technical and serious part isn't in the movement, it's in the marketing. The heritage implied tax works because the brand's reputation is real and the watch is good. That combination makes the discrepancy between the implied and actual engineering quality very hard to see from inside the boutique. IWC implies technical prestige across the catalog. Tag Heuer takes the same idea and builds a trap inside it. Number 3. Tag Heuer, the marketing halo tax. The Carrera chronograph glass box is a legitimately good watch, and I want to start there, because this entry isn't about that watch. It's about what sits around it. The TH2000 caliber inside the glass box is Tag Heuer's in-house development. 80-hour power reserve, column wheel chronograph with a vertical clutch, COSC certified, 5-year warranty. The curved sapphire crystal that extends over the edges of the case is a distinctive construction with no direct imitator at the price. At $6,500, the watch makes a real case for itself based on actual engineering, and mostly wins the argument. The glass box earned its reputation. Now look at what that reputation is being used to sell. The Carrera Day-Date at $3,700 runs the Tag Heuer Caliber 5. The Caliber 5 is a Salida SW2001 base, 38-hour power reserve, no COSC certification, no column wheel. The Carrera Twin Time at $3,300 runs the Caliber 7 or TH3103, depending on the variant, also Salida-based, also uncertified. Tag Heuer does not advertise this distinction at the boutique level. The Carrera name applies equally to TH2000 references and Salida-powered references. The motorsport heritage, the Jack Heuer story, the Carrera Panamericana road race that gave the collection its name, the Formula One partnership. All of this sells the Day-Date at $3,700 without the movement inside that watch having any relationship to the precision timing achievement the marketing invokes. Put the Day-Date next to a Tudor Black Bay 58, similar price tier around $4,300. The MT5400 U inside the Black Bay carries dual COSC and Meta's Master Chronometer certification. Metas tests the complete assembled watch after casing, requiring performance within 0 to +5 seconds per day in the finished object. Tudor applies this standard across the Black Bay lineup as a matter of consistent policy, not as a premium tier upsell available only on one reference. Every Black Bay buyer gets the certified movement. At Tag Heuer, certification depends on which Carrera you happen to choose. Most buyers don't know to ask the question before signing. The sales presentation doesn't volunteer the distinction. The Carrera branding implies a quality floor that not every Carrera meets. The secondary market has registered this clearly. Watch Charts data shows consistent variance in pre-owned Carrera value retention between the Salida-based references and the TH2000 glassbox generation. Buyers who researched before purchase got into the right references. Buyers who trusted the Carrera name to guarantee a consistent movement standard found the distinction when they tried to sell. The Carrera day date does not retain value the way the glassbox chronograph does, because the secondary market understands what's inside each one, even when the boutique doesn't explain it. This is the marketing halo tax. The glassbox earned a genuine reputation. Tag Heuer extends that reputation across a catalog that includes watches whose movements wouldn't independently justify the prices being charged. The buyer pays for the story the glassbox built and receives a Salida in a Carrera case. There's a useful way to test this. Walk into a Tag Heuer boutique and ask the sales associate directly, does the Carrera day date have the same movement as the Carrera chronograph glassbox? Most salespeople will not know the answer. Some will look it up. Almost none will lead with the distinction voluntarily. The information is available, but you have to know to ask for it, which means you have to already know the answer before you can get it. The buyer who doesn't know the question doesn't know what they're comparing. That's not unique to Tag Heuer. It's industry standard practice across the Swiss watch space. But the distance between the glassbox's TH2000 and the day date's Salida SW2001 is large enough, at prices close enough, that the halo effect is doing substantial work here. Did you know the day date runs an uncertified Salida movement before watching this? Tag charges for a story built on one part of its catalog. Breitling has a longer story and charges more per chapter. Number 2. Rolex GMT Master 2 Pepsi 126710 BLRO. On the 14th of April, 2026, opening day of Watches and Wonders in Geneva, Rolex removed the GMT Master 2 Pepsi from its catalog. No replacement was announced, no press release, no farewell. The product page for the reference 126710 BLRO simply returned, "This page is not available," within hours of the fair opening. The authorized dealers had already been told weeks earlier that no further deliveries were coming, but most of the world found out on April 14. The market's response was immediate. Chrono24 reported a 500% surge in purchase requests for the 126710 BLRO in the days following the announcement. Watch Charts data showed the reference had already gained nearly 12% in Q1 2026 as discontinuation rumors circulated before confirmation. After April 14, asking prices on unworn examples pushed past $30,000 against a retail price where it was even available of roughly $12,000 in the United States. Some dealers were asking $38,000 and higher for sealed 2026, dated examples with complete sets. The Pepsi's history matters here. The red and blue GMT master bezel goes back to a 1954 partnership with Pan American World Airways, built specifically to help pilots track 2 time zones, red for day, blue for night. The Cerachrom ceramic version that returned to the permanent collection in steel in 2018 became one of the most coveted watches in modern Rolex production. A steel sports watch commanding multi-year waiting lists at authorized dealers, trading at a steady 80 to 100% over retail through the market correction that took down almost everything else. The ceramic bezel, two-tone, fired at temperatures between 850 and 1300 degrees Celsius, was technically so demanding that production yield was a genuine constraint on supply. That constraint may be exactly why Rolex walked away. And now there's a closed supply. The Hulk, the green dial Submariner 116610 LV, was discontinued in 2020 at roughly $14,000 on the secondary market. It had roughly doubled to nearly $30,000 by 2022. The Pepsi starts from a higher floor. Industry analysts are watching it for the same pattern, but noting that unlike the Hulk, there is no same colorway successor in the GMT lineup. The steel GMT now runs Batman, Batgirl, Bruce Wayne, and Sprite. None carry red. That absence matters structurally. The dealer who had 3 Pepsi examples in his inventory on April 13 and decided to hold through the announcement has had a very good spring. The collector who had one and considered listing it in March is quietly grateful he didn't. The biggest discontinuation story of 2026. And yet, number 1 is not the obvious choice. Because the obvious choice is never the most interesting one. Number 1. Rolex GMT Master 2 Batman 126710 BLNR. Wait, hear this out. Every analyst, every forum post, every video made after April 14 said the same thing. The Pepsi is the discontinuation play. Buy the Pepsi. The Pepsi is the story. And they're right. But that consensus creates its own problem. When every sophisticated buyer is already positioned in one reference, the premium has usually already moved. The Batman, reference 126710 BLNR, blue and black Serichrome bezel on oyster bracelet, is still in production, still trading at a secondary market premium over retail. And quietly, it's become the last remaining steel GMT Master 2 with a two-tone bezel in the current Rolex catalog. The Pepsi was the benchmark, but the Batman is now the only two-color option left. The Hulk parallel actually teaches something specific. In 2020, the discontinued watch was the Hulk. The in-production equivalent was the Starbucks, reference 126610 LV. Both went up. The discontinued one went up faster. But the in-production watch that absorbed the collector base of the discontinued reference, the one people bought when they couldn't get the dead one, went up steadily for 2 years and held. That's the Batman's position today. So if the Pepsi is done, the Batman becomes the dual-tone GMT reference for every collector who wanted that specific visual language in a steel sports Rolex. And that collector base is very large. Wait times at authorized dealers for the Batman, already measured in years before April 2026, are not improving. I go back and forth on this one more than any other watch on this list. The Pepsi is the headline, but I keep coming back to the Batman as the watch where the longer story plays out, where the collector who buys it now is in a better position in 5 years than the one who chased the discontinuation event at peak premium. Both are on this list. They're different bets. Know which one you're making before you make it. The watches that end up worth a fortune almost never feel safe at the time. The Aquanaut was mocked. The Long One was ignored outside Germany for a decade. The White Snoopy barely sold. The Calatrava with the chin got rejected by forums before anyone looked at the production numbers. The pattern is the same every time. Genuine scarcity meets quality the market hasn't priced yet, and then the market catches up. The only question is whether you catch up first. And the frustrating truth is that the answer usually depends on whether you bought the watch because you loved it, not because you expected it to perform. The collections that turn into fortunes are almost always built by people who weren't thinking about fortunes. So which one will you get? Like and subscribe as you tell me. The Hub 4100 criticism was fair in the mid-2000s, but so was the context. At that time, almost every brand at this price tier was running ETA movements, and the practice was normal and accepted across the industry. Patek used a JLC movement in the early Nautilus. AP used an outsourced caliber in the Royal Oak until 2012. The industry-wide shift toward in-house movements came later, partly driven by ETA, announcing it would restrict movement sales to outside brands, which changed what brands were incentivized to build. And second, Hublot did eventually build in-house. The Unico caliber, launched in 2011, is a column wheel flyback chronograph developed within Hublot. Big Bang Unico references carry a different movement story. They retail higher, beginning around $18,000, and hold value meaningfully better on the secondary market than the ETA-based originals. So Hublot can make a manufacture movement. They chose, for years, to sell the original at $12,900 with an ETA inside, while the art of fusion marketing implied technical artistry it hadn't earned in that specific watch. The case itself deserves its due. Hublot's engineering specifications list 257 individual components in the Big Bang case construction. The ceramic bezel compounds are partly Hublot developed. The rubber strap integration into the case lugs influenced how the entire industry thinks about strap attachment going forward. There's real craft in the case that goes beyond what most brands produce at any price. But case complexity doesn't improve accuracy, doesn't extend the service interval, doesn't make the watch tell time better. A 257-component case around an ETA 2894 is still an ETA 2894. Strip the branding off the Big Bang. Put it in a generic steel case, hand it to a watchmaker with no paperwork. They'd quote you ETA service pricing, because that's what they'd find. Then look at what you paid for the case and the story surrounding it. That gap is the Hublot tax, the largest and most measurable one on this list, confirmed by 15 years of secondary market transactions. The secondary market is where watches go when the narrative is removed. Without the narrative, the Big Bang original has been valued consistently at around $5,500 for more than a decade. The aesthetic philosophy tax is the most expensive one on this list, but it's also the most clarifying one. Because when you understand what happened with Hublot, you understand what you're actually paying for across the entire luxury watch industry. You're paying for an object, and you're paying for a story about the object. When the story is bigger than the object can justify, you discover the difference when you try to sell. For most of the brands on this list, the story and the object are reasonably close. Breitling makes good watches. IWC makes good watches. Even the Longines is a good watch. The question isn't quality. It's proportion. The proportion between what the object costs to make and what the story costs to buy is where the tax lives. And the tax, across each of these 5 brands in specific parts of their catalogs, is larger than the boutique visit would suggest. The brands on this list aren't frauds. They have real Swiss credentials and real craft at some level of the catalog. But the watch industry runs on an assumption that most buyers won't know what's inside their watch, won't compare movement costs across brands, and will defer to the story over the specification when the story is told well enough. The boutiques are designed to make that assumption hold. The marketing is budgeted around that assumption. The training sales associates receive is calibrated to support that assumption. Sometimes the story is worth it. When the price reflects the object, when the movement earns the boutique premium, when the secondary market agrees with the retail price, buying the story is buying something real. So, the question, with every watch you consider, is whether the premium above a comparable no-name case is being earned by what's inside or by what's being told to you at the point of sale. The honest version of this question is, if you stripped the brand name off this watch, what would a watchmaker say it's worth? And is that number close to what you're paying? With the 5 brands on this list, the honest answer to that question is that the number is not close. The gap between what the movement justifies and what you paid at retail is the tax. In some cases, it's a few $100s. In others, it's $7,000 and 15 years of consistent secondary market evidence confirming the same calculation. The watches that hold value over time tend to be the ones where the answer is the object. The fastest depreciating ones are usually the ones where the answer was the narrative. Knowing the difference before you spend 5 figures isn't cynicism. It's the reason people who've been collecting watches for 30 years make very different purchase decisions than people who just walked into their first boutique. The 30-year collector has usually paid the tax once or twice, discovered the secondary market's verdict, and adjusted. The new buyer pays retail for the story, then pays again when they sell. So, the question, with every watch you consider, is whether the premium above a comparable no-name case is being earned by what's inside or by what's being told to you at the point of sale. The honest version of this question is, if you stripped the brand name off this watch, what would a watchmaker say it's worth? And is that number close to what you're paying? With the 5 brands on this list, the honest answer to that question is that the number is not close. The gap between what the movement justifies and what you paid at retail is the tax. In some cases, it's a few $100s. In others, it's $7,000 and 15 years of consistent secondary market evidence confirming the same calculation. The watches that hold value over time tend to be the ones where the answer is the object. The fastest depreciating ones are usually the ones where the answer was the narrative. Knowing the difference before you spend 5 figures isn't cynicism. It's the reason people who've been collecting watches for 30 years make very different purchase decisions than people who just walked into their first boutique. The 30-year collector has usually paid the tax once or twice, discovered the secondary market's verdict, and adjusted. The new buyer pays retail for the story, then pays again when they sell. So now you know that you are paying for a brand name instead of what a watch can do. How will this shape your future purchases? Will you still fall for the stories and prestige, or will you see what makes your watch really special? Let me know in the comments. Before you go, hit the like button to help us make more investigative videos like this and subscribe.